Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it will be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! Let's start with the cast of the story. Me, overworked prosecutor, and the entitled dad. There has been cases in this forum that resulted in the entitled parent being arrested, and I thought there may be some interest as to what happens after the arrest. This happened many years ago when I was a deputy prosecutor handling misdemeanor cases. In this particular case, there was a street on a private beach with a series of houses in a remote area. There were other places that had public beach access, and this particular place was off the main road and not easily accessible. There was no reason to be there unless you were a resident of one of the houses or was visiting someone there. The entitled dad drove into the neighborhood and stole a boat motor from one of the properties. A neighbor watched him put the motor into his truck, got the license plate number, and called the police. A deputy responded and pulled him over a short time later. The deputy found the boat motor in the back of the truck, and the entitled dad admitted he took it. He was cited for misdemeanor theft. He was taken into custody but given a notice to appear in court. This was typical for a non-violent property offense. I then got the case. So I was minding my own business working in my office when the entitled dad called and demanded to speak to me. He then demanded that I dismiss a charge against him. He didn't really have a coherent reason as to why, since he pretty much had been caught red-handed. He mainly yelled and was obnoxious. Legal tip number 1. Yelling at the prosecutor will not result in criminal charges going away, but it will result in having to deal with a cranky prosecutor. When he couldn't bully me into dismissing the charge, then he demanded that another prosecutor be assigned to this case. And this did not happen. Legal tip number 2. People charged with crimes do not get to choose the prosecutors on their cases. The case is set for trial. He pleads not guilty and elects to represent himself. At trial, I call as witnesses the neighbor, the boat motor owner, and the arresting deputy. The entitled dad presents a beachcombing defense. That if he's able to keep a pretty shell he finds at the beach, he ought to be able to keep a boat motor. It didn't make a lot of sense. It really got interesting when he called himself as his own witness. He questioned himself by having a conversation with himself. Here's an example of how some of the actual testimony went. The entitled dad shifts to the left side of the witness chair. Mr. entitled dad's last name. Do you have a motive to steal a boat? Then he shifts to the right side of the witness chair and looks at the empty space that he had just occupied. No, I don't have a motive to steal a boat. Then he slides again to the left. Mr. entitled dad, do you like seafood? Slides right. No, I don't like seafood. My kids do not like seafood. My wife likes seafood, but that's not a motive to steal a boat. I looked over at the arresting deputy who was sitting next to me as my designated law enforcement representative. He was watching with a horrified expression, and I saw his lips silently form the words, "What the hell?" Later, when we were outside, the deputy told me how freaky he thought it was. It took the jury 15 minutes to find him guilty. I don't remember specifically what he got as a sentence, but it was likely only fines and community service since that was typical for that type of offense. Hey guys, it's Crown. Hope you're doing well. I started a brand new channel called That One Story. It'll mostly include stories coming from different subreddits, but will definitely include some entitled people getting their comeuppance. I'll leave the link in the description below, so please subscribe to the channel to listen to the latest stories, cause I'll make sure to post videos on a daily basis. Thank you and have a great day. This man I see at the gym all the time. He has never bothered me until yesterday. I see him constantly stopping people and talking to them. So I'm in a sauna and it's a co-ed sauna. I'm there with men/women all the time. Sometimes we don't talk and sometimes we have pleasant conversations. Yesterday was a different story though. It was me and one other woman and the man who I see all the time. He's not just talking, but he'll talking to the woman, non-stop. Talking about his 450k house he just bought, and going on and on and on about himself. The woman barely got in a word rather than yes, She left and I thought to myself, I'm so happy she's gone so he can be quiet. He turns to me and he says, "So, how you doing today?" I say I'm trying to relax right now. And he says, "Oh, do you mean you want me to shut up? All I did was ask how you were doing. It seems like you just don't want to talk to me." I say nothing. He's huffing and puffing and before he walks out he goes, "You witch!" So I say you cannot cuss at me and make me feel uncomfortable in the sauna. I'm telling on you. And he goes, "I didn't cuss at you." I go to the front desk and I tell them. They are apologetic. They have the lifeguard look for him and they can't find him. I tell them I have work soon and need to get ready. I shower and I leave. The lady at the front desk stops me and tell me that they can't find him. He hasn't left and they think he's hiding somewhere in a pool room. Moral of the story, they called me this morning and told me he's banned for life. And now I'm on my way to the gym and going to the sauna. This is the first time I'm sharing my story about what happened after I left my husband and went to live at my mother's home with our 3 children. In this story, we will just call him X, as he's the only one I've ever had and the only person of that nature to be referred to. For some background, my ex and I got divorced a few months ago, and the process went fairly smoothly. We, including our kids, have been staying at his mother's house. We were planning on moving out once we found an affordable place fairly close by, so the kids could still be close to their school and friends. Obviously and thankfully, that plan never went into action. My ex had verbally and sometimes physically abused me during that time that we were still together. There was no way during his blind fits of rage for me to keep everything out of the children's view every single time. So of course, when it all came down to it, and we left for my mother's home, they told me plainly that they didn't want to go back and see their father because they were scared of what he might do to them. He has never hurt them, at least that I have seen. But I grew up with my parents screaming at each other daily, so I know what that can do to a kid. I told him that they are safe with me and they don't have to go back and see him anytime soon, especially if they don't want to. I told my husband that it was their choice not to see him so soon after we left, and I informed him that they all 3 had decided to wait it out for a little bit and he couldn't come to see them during this time. He had made a huge deal out of everything when we originally left, but I thought it had calmed down. I guess the news of his children not wanting to see him threw everything over the edge. Me and my ex agreed the next day, after he had calmed a bit, that they would all talk to him over a phone call every night before bed so he could at least talk to them. I heard them talking to him on the phone, and all that fear they had spoken to me with seemed to be gone. I started to feel bad for him. I got full custody of these children, and the guilt of that in itself tore me apart over the next couple of weeks. I know now that it shouldn't have, and I never should have given in when I knew what he was capable of. But once a month had gone by without them seeing him physically, I invited him over. Of course, I asked my children first, and they, as well as my own mother, thought it would be a good idea. Since it wasn't his house and everything would be monitored, now would be a good time for me to explain that my husband has severe anger issues and was diagnosed with bipolar disorder as a teenager. None of this, nor the abuse I suffered in our years of marriage, came to mind when I was planning for him to come over. All I felt was a regret of taking his kids away from him. Anyways, the day comes, he comes over, everything is fine. I didn't think much more of it for the next 2 days after. I was planning on asking the kids and him if they all wanted to meet somewhere for dinner or something else because the meeting at our house went so well. At least I thought. Monday morning, 3 days after he has been here with me and my children, I heard my mother's Ring camera go off, like someone was outside on her Porsche. She has one with the video features so I can hear them and talk to them in real time. It was only 4, so I stayed laying down beside my mother in her bed. I heard her toss and turn before grabbing her tablet and looking at whatever it was. I will admit the sound was quite annoying. I kept my eyes closed. I thought everything was fine until I heard my mother whisper my name. Her tone was rushed and frightened. It scared the death out of me. So I flipped around and saw something I didn't know I was afraid of until it happened. My ex was on the Porsche, pacing back and forth, eyes set on the camera the whole time. In one of his hands, he held a gun, and I freaked out, ran to where my children were staying, took them and myself into the bathroom, and immediately called 911. I had only been in there for a minute after explaining what had happened when I heard a gunshot and an ear-piercing scream. My kids started to cry and scream as well. I might have been crying too. I tried to shush them and wait silently until I could hear sirens. The rest is so blurry in my mind, but what happened was that my mother's boyfriend had been working in the basement. The Ring system was through his phone too, so I'm guessing he grabbed his gun when he saw it. He went upstairs, told my ex to leave, and when he didn't, my mom's boyfriend threatened him with a gun. My ex began to flip the safety off his pistol, but before he could, mom's boyfriend shot him in the shoulder and slammed the door shut. Thankfully, no one got hurt but him. I am not sure what his intent was, but all the ideas and possibilities just won't stop flooding through my brain. This is the end of the story though. I'm filing a restraining order against him, and I know that he will never get to see these kids again. I hope this is a proper revenge for all the abuse I faced and for him threatening my family and our kids. I hope to never see him again, and hopefully the criminal charges are revenge enough. This is hard to talk about right now considering how recent it was, but I will try to update if I can on if this is truly revenge enough for everything horrible he's done. Okay, so I lived in a small-ish town, and there was this one kid a few years younger than me. His dad was a lawyer or the county prosecutor. I can't remember, but the point is whenever he got himself in trouble, the police would look the other way because they didn't want to deal with his dad. Well, because of this, his antics sort of escalated. When he got in high school, he started encouraging his friends to take part in his various misdeeds, which made him the town's local public nuisance. One day after school got out, he and his friends, at his suggestion, started taunting seniors leaving school and throwing pencils and garbage at their cars as they pulled out of the parking lot. Now I wasn't there to see this as I prefer walking to and from school, but a buddy of mine watched it all go down as he was waiting for his girlfriend to get done with some club activities so he could give her a ride home. After about 10 minutes of this, a school cop came out and told him to knock it off, to which the entitled kid replied with his usual, "Do you know who my dad is? You can't do anything." I think the local officers had enough of him, so he walked off just out of hearing distance and called it in. 2 squad cars pulled up and arrested the entitled kid's friends, but not the entitled kid. From what I heard, they weren't charged with anything, but their parents had to pick them up from the police station. Hell, everyone stopped talking to him. Just because he couldn't get arrested didn't mean people he hung out with enjoyed the same privilege. I was a senior when all this went down, so I graduated at the end of that year, and I never saw him again. But I heard he stopped being a nuisance to everyone around him now that he had no one to impress. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.